There's an old saying that many are probably familiar with. It says, life is short, better enjoy it while you can. There's another saying that most of you are probably unfamiliar with. It says, eternity is long, better prepare for it while you can. Then there's another saying which I have added, and it says, time is short and many are unprepared. We need to be about our Father's business. Many of us have family and friends who are unprepared for eternity. Many have not yet made a personal commitment to Jesus, and many more think they are ready for heaven because they were christened or baptized as an infant. They don't realize that going to heaven requires a personal relationship with Jesus. These teachings are to stir us to winning our lost family and friends to Jesus before time runs out. Welcome to Making Revelation Simple. This is a commentary on the book of Revelation, which is based on the Three Woes series of books. In this session, we will be covering Revelation chapter 6. Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. John says, I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, Come and see. And behold, I saw a white horse, and he that sat on him has a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. So we're now looking at the beginning of the opening of the seals. In chapter 5, we were introduced to the seven-sealed book, and it's now time for those seals to be broken. As John sees the Lamb open the first seal, he hears a voice like thunder. It's coming from the first beast, the roaring lion that we were introduced to in chapter 4. The roaring lion is telling John to look at what the opening of the first seal will bring upon the earth. The first seal is deception. With the opening of the first seal, we see a white horse and its rider being released upon the earth. It seems about half of the church world believes that the rider on this white horse is the Antichrist, and the other half believes the rider is Christ. One of these two groups is wrong or deceived as to who the rider really is. It seems that this horse and his rider are releasing deception upon the world, and that corresponds to the first sign as recorded in Matthew. Is there any easier way to overcome and to conquer someone than through deception or deceit? It's way easier than trying to do so through force. So the opening of the seals. For years now, we've been deceived into believing that the rapture of the church occurred when John was called up hither in chapter 4. This teaching caused many of us to assume that the opening of the seals and the arrival of the four horsemen of the apocalypse marked the beginning of the 7 years of Jacob's trouble. This is not true. We are currently living through the first 5 seals. The return of Jesus and the rapture of the church occurs with the opening of the 6th seal. The seals correspond to the signs of Christ's return. Notice how the seals correspond to the signs as we go through chapter 6. Jesus said these signs would precede his return. The signs were given in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And many kind of assume that the first sign in Matthew and Mark and Luke was the beginning of wars and rumors of wars. But if you read the scripture carefully, the first sign in each of these was deception. And it's actually mentioned, was mentioned 4 or 3 times in the book of Matthew. So the first seal to be opened and the first sign that Christ told us to look for that would precede his coming was deception. So these signs or seals do not follow Jesus' return to rapture his church. They precede it. The rapture occurs with the opening of the 6th seal. Let's continue looking. Chapter 6, verses 3 through 4. John says, when he had opened the 2nd seal, and John didn't open it, it was Jesus opening this 2nd seal, John heard the 2nd beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat on that horse to take peace from the earth. So the 2nd seal is wars. When the Lamb opens the 2nd seal, John hears the 2nd beast, which is the calf or the ox, inviting him to see a red horse going forth, taking peace from the earth by means of war and force. Many think wars and rumors of wars is the first sign in the Gospels, but deception is actually that first sign that we mentioned just a moment ago. In addition, the warning to be aware of deception is repeated 3 times as recorded in Matthew 24, verses 4, verse 5, and verse 7 or verse 11. Continuing on with Revelation chapter 6, verses 5 through 6. John says, when Jesus had opened the 3rd seal, he heard the 3rd beast say, "Come and see," and lo, a black horse. And he hears him saying, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny." This is depicting famine coming up on the world. This 3rd beast, man, introduces the black horse as his rider that brings famine upon the earth. In John's day, 1 denarius or penny represented a day's wage. What we're being told here is that food prices are high because of famine, probably because of the wars that preceded. One can buy 3 measures of barley, a cheap man or a poor man's food, or 1 measure of wheat, a rich man's food, for a day's wage. And a measure was about 2/3 of a quart, just to give you a feel. So continuing on to Revelation chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, John says, when Jesus had opened the 4th seal, John heard the voice of the 4th beast say, "Come and see." And behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them, being death and hell, over a 4th part of the earth, to kill with a sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. So a number of things to notice here. This 4th horse, we're actually told who the riders are, death and hell. And I would contend that if it was important for us to know who the rider of the 1st horse or even the 2nd or the 3rd horse was, God would have told us. He told us here. But they are not important enough to take note of. Therefore, God didn't bother telling us, didn't have John tell us. And also, the other thing to note here in these 2 verses is that giving power over a 4th part of the earth to kill with sword and with hunger. That's referencing back to the red horse and the black horse, which brought forth the red horse brought forth war, killing with sword, and the black horse brought forth famine, killing with hunger. And then this horse is bringing forth the beasts of the earth. Now, when I hear beasts of the earth, when I was young, I used to think in terms of lions and tigers and bears and things like that. But the beasts of the earth that really kill mankind are the microscopic little beasts, those things that cause cholera and typhoid and smallpox and kill man so easily. So those are the beasts of the earth. And this opening of the 4th seal is announced by the eagle. It brings a wave of pestilence upon the earth. The beasts of the earth that kill mankind, again, are all those microbes which cause the diseases that we're so susceptible to. And also this mentioning with sword and with hunger. This seal is inclusive of the 2nd and 3rd seals. Even deception. Once a seal is opened, just because the next seal is opened, it doesn't mean that the activity and the response from that 1st seal ceases. They're cumulative. Once the 6th seal is open, at that point in time, we're still going to see the process all going on from the 1st seal, the 2nd seal, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. So they will be continuing. Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. John says, and when Jesus had opened the 5th seal, he saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And those souls cried out for God to avenge our blood. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and they were told to rest yet for a little season. The 5th seal brought forth persecution. The first 4 seals brought forth the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, who directed trouble towards the people of the world, while the opening of the 5th seal sees trouble being directed towards God's people. The 5th seal, persecution. In the book of Matthew, the next sign that Jesus warns us to watch for after deception, wars, famines, and pestilences is persecution. And we see that in Matthew 24, verses 7 through 9. It says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. This 5th seal is a picture of saints being martyred for their faith. It is not a picture of ungodly men refusing to worship the image of the beast. Remember, when men won't receive the mark of the beast without first worshiping the beast. The mark of the beast system will not be implemented until chapter 13 of Revelation, and those that refuse to take the mark of the beast are not seen until John's third view of heaven at Revelation chapter 15, verses 2 and 3. And here we see that. And John saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass. These fifth seal martyrs are being slain for the word of God and for their testimony. They are fellow Christians who will make up the bride of Christ. Here in chapter 6, we see the martyrs asking God to avenge their deaths, but God refuses to do so just yet. The reason God's refusal is because we're still living in the church age. The time of God's wrath has not yet arrived on the scene. These martyrs are still living through the age of grace and prior to the rapture of the church. God's wrath isn't poured out upon the world until after the opening of the sixth seal. It's also worthy to note that each of these martyrs, or these saints, are given white robes. That's the attire of the saints. That's the attire of the great multitude as seen in chapter 7 and also in chapter 19 of Revelation. And here again in this little chart, we see the review of Revelation, seeing deception, wars, famines, pestilences, and persecution. And we see those same signs that Jesus told us to watch for over in Matthew: deception, wars, famines, pestilences, and persecution. They're one and the same, the seals and the signs are. I've used this chart in the past, and I had a title on it talking about prophecy or history, talking about these first four seals. This time I'm changed the title to say, these are the signs pointing to Christ's return. The first one was deception. And what we saw come on the scene back in the mid-1800s was the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormon Church, and the Christian Science Church, all pseudo-Christian organizations, but not quite adhering to the full theological doctrine of the Christian faith. And then at the same time that they came on the scenes, we saw Charles Darwin come on the scenes with his theory of evolution, and Karl Marx with his Communist Manifesto, all leading to deception of true believers. And then following this, in the early 1900s, we saw World War I and World War II, and many other wars come on the scene, matching up with the opening of the second seal, wars. And then following these wars, we saw the great famines of the 20th century, and they also aligned with the opening of the third seal, which was famine. And then following that, and throughout a lot of the 19th century, or the 1900s rather, the 20th century, we saw cholera pandemics and smallpox pandemics, the 1918 influenza, and we saw HIV/AIDS, and polio, and Ebola, and COVID-19 most recently, all pestilences that came upon mankind. Continuing with Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 through 14, John says, I beheld, and when Jesus had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the heaven fell into the earth. The sixth seal is marking the rapture of the church. What we see kicking it off is a great earthquake, and then that releases the celestial events that make up the cosmic signs. It seems logical to believe that the cosmic signs will have a worldwide effect, meaning the entire earth is going to be engulfed with the impact of what causes them. As we review the opening of the sixth seal in Revelation and the accounts of Jesus' coming in the three Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it's easy to see the parallels. Each of these three accounts describes the cosmic events involving the sun, the moon, and the stars. It's apparent that each account is describing the same celestial events that usher in Jesus' return to rapture his church. Let's look at this particular one in Mark. It's very descriptive. It says, in those days after that tribulation, and we will deal with that phrase in just a moment, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall he send his angels, and they shall gather his elect from the four winds, from the four corners of the earth. What we see here in Mark chapter 13, verses 6 through 23 is Christ speaking of the signs that will foreshadow his coming. Mark chapter 13, verse 9 also says, "But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils. And in the synagogues ye shall be beaten, and ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my name's sake." That's the tribulation. That chapter 13 of Mark and verse 9 is marrying back to the fifth seal being opened and the martyrdom of the saints. And that's what after the tribulation in Mark chapter 13, verse 24 is referring to. It's not referring to the 7 years of the Great Tribulation that we have tagged on to that 7-year time frame, which really should be called the 7 years of Jacob's trouble. Tribulation is always referring back to tribulation against the church. It's not talking about a future 7-year time period. So many people tend to relate that after the tribulation in the book of Revelation, or in the book of Mark rather, is referring to the 7 years of Jacob's trouble. We want to call it that 7 years of tribulation, but it's a 7 years of Jacob's trouble. The term tribulation is used 19 times in the Bible, and each proclamation of trouble is always upon Christian believers within the body of the church. The only exception is found in Romans chapter 2, verse 9, where the trouble proclaimed is upon all mankind, not just the church. Continuing on, Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 through 14 says, "When Jesus had opened the sixth seal, we had the great earthquake, and heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places." Before the cosmic signs, something very cataclysmic has occurred. Something cataclysmic enough that it moved every mountain and every island out of their place. Since the end of World War II, most theologians have surmised that these events would be the result of a major nuclear conflict, potentially World War III. Could a man-made nuclear war really move every mountain and island from all around the world? Well, it seems doubtful. So what's really going on? Most of us have always believed that a nuclear war would be the catalyst to bring about the cosmic signs. But can a nuclear war really move every mountain and island around the world? Very doubtful. So what can cause such a massive worldwide earthquake that would move every island and mountain? The root cause of the cosmic signs. Until just recently, nearly all scientists have believed in the standard model of the universe. This model holds that everything in the universe is primarily controlled and ruled by gravity, even though scientists can't explain gravity's function. Over the past decade, some scientists have put forth a new model of the universe called the electric universe model. This model pretty much dismisses gravity as the controlling influence and explains that electricity holds the universe together and controls all things within the universe, much like the workings of an atom with its perfectly balanced protons and neutrons. The electric universe model states that our sun is much like an LED light bulb. It can easily be brightened or dimmed due to electromagnetic currents. When the sun is putting off light, it's said that it is in glow mode. And when it is dark, it is said that it is in dark mode. These electromagnetic currents can affect local solar flares on the sun, cause geomagnetic storms, initiate coronal mass ejections, and cause micronovas or even supernovas. The electromagnetic current has the potential to either brighten or dim our sun, or even turn it off. Now, before you think this has gone too far and I'm way out there in the sci-fi world, let's see if the Bible supports such a concept. In the book of Exodus, God instructs Moses to stretch forth his hand towards the heavens, and that there would be thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. This is darkness like you would experience if you were in the depths of a great cave with no night. We are told that the Egyptians couldn't see one another and didn't leave where they were for 3 days. The Egyptians couldn't even see their hand in front of their own face. This is describing the complete extinguishing of the sun for 3 complete days. And we can find that back at Exodus chapter 10 and verses 22 through 23. It says, Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. We've been taught that matter has 3 states: solid, liquid, and gaseous. We've also been taught that our sun is a burning gaseous globe. But scientists now tell us that both of these teachings are in fact false. They now tell us there are 4 states of matter, the 4th state being plasma, and they tell us our sun is plasma. Sometimes scientists believe an exceptionally powerful solar flare, coronal mass ejection, or some other outpourings from our home star could cause our planet's crust to shift, shake, and shudder. The earthquake described at Revelation 6:12 could be the result of a coronal mass ejection. We really don't know, but we do know that a cataclysmic earthquake is going to strike the earth at the time of the rapture of the church. This worldwide earthquake will be the initial kickoff to the rapture, quickly followed by the sun going into dark mode and the moon looking like blood. Continuing on to Revelation chapter 6, verses 15 through 17, it says, "The kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the chief captains, the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne." The concluding verses of chapter 6 here are painting us a picture of how mankind is responding to the earthquake, the cosmic signs, and the rapture of the church. Everyone who is left on earth following the rapture of the church, no matter their standing in society or their financial status, is trying to hide themselves from the face of God and from his wrath. They're saying, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, and from the great day of his wrath. Remember, just a few verses ago, these ones being persecuted and martyred for their faith were calling for God to avenge their deaths. That was during the time of the opening of the 5th seal, and God was unwilling to avenge the death of these martyred saints. But now here we're being told that the day of his wrath has come. So what has changed in these last 5 verses since Revelation chapter 6, verse 11? What's changed is the rapture of the church. It is marked by the opening of the 6th seal in verse 12. That concludes our commentary on chapter 6. Continue on to the next video to watch our commentary on chapter 7 of Revelation. Thank you very much for watching.